Okay, so we're gonna go live in just a second. So if you guys are out there in anticipation of tonight's episode, I hope it'll inspire all of you. So we have just a few more seconds before we're gonna start, but I hope you guys are all seated with a cup of tea or a nice glass of water and a pencil and pads, because there might be some valuable little tools here that you could start with just tonight, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen for just a moment, but I wanna welcome you all to season 5, episode 1. So we're really excited, and it's 5 years that we've been doing this, and we've gotten so much great feedback in regards to the valuable information that we're able to share. So it really warms our heart for all of you guys to continue to support us and be here and to continue on your journey of healthy living and education, because we're always gonna be students until we check out of this human body. So tonight I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next slide, because if you're just joining us now, thank you for joining us this evening and spending your time with us. And the new year is always exciting because it gives us the opportunity to use our imagination. And tonight we're gonna be talking about, rather than resolutions, we're gonna be talking about intentions. In fact, I had when I was at the gym the other day, one of the gym members, we've seen each other for 30 years. She looked at me and she said, Liliana, have you set your resolutions? And I stopped and I said, well, actually, I don't do resolutions. I do intentions. So hopefully we're going to be talking about that you can resonate with it and start shifting over from the mindset of how you want to see 2026 roll out for you. So I'm going to go ahead and click here. So many of you know me. I've been working with Dr. Keneally for 24 years here. I am the nutritionist. I also work for the biofeedback for emotional regulation, working with limiting beliefs and traumas, because we believe that the cornerstone of all illnesses have an emotional component to it, some unresolved grief and or trauma. Now, it doesn't mean that creates the disease. It's just a component that supports, and so we want to be able to look at that. So that's one of the things I love to do. I love connecting with our patients and getting them to reconnect back to who they are. And I always tell everybody, this physical body is just your vehicle. It's biodegradable. This is not who you are, but do you know who you are from a soul point of view? So that always provides for a very provoking and interesting conversation, and our body never lies to us. So it's an honor for me to be able to work with patients on that very intimate, deep level with biofeedback, a device I used called e-box, and many of you are familiar with it. So I also do lectures, and of course, as a nutritionist here, I'm going to look at the doctor's recommendations, and of course, I have the privilege of seeing all the lab work, so I'm able, along with what the doctor intention is to be able to provide the information so it can be bite-sized pieces so that they can make a lifestyle out of it, because whatever gets you well is going to keep you well. So we're looking at shifting in long-term lifestyle changes. I do microscopy, which is, live cell analysis. We have someone here, Teresa, who does dark field, which is just a little step up more because it looks inside the cell rather than just on the outside. But again, it's nice for me to have such a huge background so that I'm able to speak to any of the patients on any of the treatments that they get here at the Center for New Medicine. Now, one of the reasons, why I think that resolutions often fail, and think about this. Now, think about you. I mean, I can think about myself in regards when I have done this. I have great intentions. I'm really motivated, and maybe I'll even enlist my sister or someone else to go along, and we write down, what we want to let go of in 2024, or 2025, and then what we want to bring into the new year. But when I used to do this from a way of goal setting, it became too narrow. And oftentimes, when they were very definable, work out 5 days a week, do this and that, when I didn't reach those little markers, then it gave me a sense of, feeling a little bit like I am not honoring myself. Why didn't I do it? So then guilt started setting in, and I felt that really dropped down the motivation and for my desire to want to keep, moving in that direction. So a lot of times within weeks, people abandon, their, New Year's resolutions or goals because something gets in the way. There's always going to be something that gets in the way, whether it is a an occasion like a birthday or a celebration, or even something like grief that gets in the way. And, I just had a situation that happened with me and my family, and it was interesting. I was like, wow, now I know why people bring food to your home when someone has passed away, because you have zero motivation and zero energy, and it is just about grief eating. But when you're aware of that's what you're doing, you're not surprised when, the results are not exactly what you want, a few weeks later. But when you have an intention to stay in alignment, it's easy to get right back to it because the way you feel and the experience you're getting is not positive. So when we have an intention, we set really, the mindset of, I do this because it makes me feel good. It's not because I'm trying to get to a certain weight or achieve a certain this, because once we achieve the certain this, if we're all about, climbing up the ladder of a success, then when is enough? So again, our goal is to look at it from a point of view of what is my desired outcome and how can I set little teeny achieve little milestones so that I'm in victory over my day rather than, disappointed over what I did or what I didn't do. So when we have this idea of setting resolutions, and if you don't achieve them, what do? You feel guilty. And so feeling guilty, as I said, it lowers your dopamine, which is going to lower your motivation. And then again, we talked about within a couple of weeks, you may be abandoning these things or saying, oh, I've got the whole year to deal with this. And, right now it's not feasible, but, I'll definitely get to it. And then the last 4 or 5 months of the end of the year, you're just looking at yourself and you're saying, oh my gosh, I have not honored and I feel bad. And then I'll take these, resolutions into the next year. And how many of you, including myself when I did this, kept taking the resolutions to the next year and that goal to the next year and that goal to the next year. And it just really seemed like, it was way too much pressure. And so again, when you are in the mindset of, a rigid mindset to it, it's very draining because it takes the joy out of it. And I'm all about making sure that we live our life in not only in gratitude, but really, being able to extract as much joy as we can, from our day-to-day life. When a bird crosses my path when I'm walking, I take a moment and say, thank you for getting my attention and seeing this beautiful bird, or look at the amazing cloud formation. And when we do this, we are stepping into our body and being anchored into, enjoying the moment and bringing that joy, squeezing a little bit, of every little thing we do so that we have, a greater nourishment, but also a greater well to drink from when life doesn't go our way. And so again, we never want to feel like we're being pressured into doing something. Maybe you got a comment that, oh, you've gained weight or blah, blah, blah. So, I don't want to, have somebody feel that way about me. Maybe it's my husband or something like that. So again, your intention should be for yourself because it brings you a sense of joy. It brings you a sense of I'm proud of myself because I was able to shift and change in a direction that I want to go. So we want to feel very supportive and not pushed into it. So resolutions, again, are very measurable, right? So again, this to this, they're task oriented. I will drink water today. I will, eat good today. I will. But if I don't, then what am I going to feel? I'm going to go back to feeling shame and guilt. Where intentions are so much broader. They're not that identity to the task and desired outcome. They're way more flexible and they can be tasks driven. My intention is to stay hydrated. So for me, if I don't have my water bottle next to me, it's very likely that I won't drink enough water, and I'll only realize it when, at the end of the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have any saliva left, right? And whose fault is it? It's only my own because I did not be mindful and pay attention. So again, it doesn't have to be huge shifts. And I always say, let's just do one little, focus on one thing at a time. When we achieve it, we gain a little bit more strength and the possibility that I am capable. So again, when we look at things that are driven by motivation and a desire, they're really focusing on, what is it going to do for me? Like, I'm focusing on my health. Okay, that's very broad. It's a large umbrella. Like when I work with people for emotions and I'm saying, okay, if you could ask your body absolutely anything, what would you want to know, right? Because when we ask the body in regards to biofeedback, it will give us very specific information. So they might say, well, I'm not really sure. And I go, well, just throw out some things that, you've been housing in your mind that you wish you'd have some resolution or clarity. And so they'll throw out a bunch of stuff. So I'll create an umbrella, and many things fit underneath the umbrella. So that's like, my intention. Many things can be underneath it. My focus is on being healthy. Well, what does that mean to me? For me, it means that I'm working out, at least 4 to 5 days a week. I luckily have a partner to work out with, my sister. We're very motivated. So, before we go to sleep at night, we go, working out tomorrow? Yep, working out. And then if, whatever chance one of us doesn't sleep well, we might be laying in bed giving ourselves permission to just sleep because we're going to honor that. And I might text my sister who's in the other room, oh, you know what? I'm going to just sleep because I didn't sleep very well. And she may go to the gym, or I may go to the gym, because our desired outcome is to feel good and to have the vitality and the energy that we both so enjoy. So again, wherever your priority is, more family time. I've got a grandbaby. So really, I want to spend as much quality time with her as possible. And so how do I structure that, in my week? And then again, so often there's a lot of chaos in the world. And so if we have chaos in here, then the likelihood of us being overwhelmed and overwhelming our immune systems and lowering our battery in terms of our capacity to create ATP is going to be very high. And then ending up in a situation, whether it is a simple viral cold or, something that has to do with your immune system. So peace of mind is something that, it's up to you, because it's your mind. You can't go to the store and buy some peace of mind. You can't eat peace of mind. You have to be mindful of the narrative that is in your mind. And again, I work with our patient a lot on, what is the story that you're telling yourself? How do you know it's true? And if it's creating some dysregulation in your nervous system, then it's your responsibility to just take a moment and say, my body's responding on the narrative. And so if the narrative isn't something that's substantiated with truth, why am I choosing to hold on to a story? So a lot of times I point out to my patients, the stories that they're housing in their head literally are making them sick. And I'm sure you guys can all relate to this when we get into this ruminating thing and we can't sleep at night and we haven't, resolved a situation. Now, I always say it's okay to work on, putting time and attention to this, but in a positive way, like owning what is happening so that I can come out the other end with a resolution rather than letting the ego take you down all the paths of, whose fault it is. So I love doing shadow work with my patients and with myself. So intentions create a guiding compass. They allow flexibility. It's like, my intention is in the palm of my hand. I'm not gripping it. So there's no stress behind it other than to stay in alignment. And so when behavior flows, from values and consistency and, what it does for me, it becomes easy and it becomes a lifestyle. I mean, I'm who I am because I created a foundation from very early, not just with, the child that I have that was really literally farm to table type of a food, but also the sports I did and always in the health and exercise arena, that it kind of just evolved into this passion and purpose so that I can walk this lifetime in my power and my passion. So again, what are you in alignment with? I mean, if you hate exercise, it's going to be really hard for you to look at this as fun. But you might say, well, what can I do that actually would be enjoyable and push myself a little bit so I'm a little out of my comfort zone, but not so much out of it that I dread it, okay? And there's always something that we can do that we can relate to. So if you treat intentions like resolutions, again, you're just going to encounter the same struggles. I have so many patients, and part of the rigidity of life where we get anxiety is we're perfectionists. We need to, make sure the doctor told us to take 50 vitamins today, and then we need to do that, and we need to take a sauna, and then we need to do detox, and then we need to do this. Well, I have patients, they're so concerned about checking everything off that they're they're actually doing the opposite of what they need to do by keeping their nervous system regulated to heal. So I said, being a perfectionist or the need to achieve is not a good thing, because in all reality, you're doing it from a place of stress and not flow. So again, checking off is not good, but of course, I love to achieve. I'm an achiever in regards to, I love being busy. Sometimes, I say to myself, it's okay not to be busy. And I put things in my life that, are things that are, not busy in terms of attaining things that I would say make me money or things like that, but things that, I would attain to go out on a walk, to go on a little discovery thing, to go to the beach, to go to do these things. So I'm bringing the element in me of the things that I want to do in exercise and intention, but I'm doing it with a sense of flexibility, which always makes it nicer. And again, our goal is to embody our intention so that it just becomes a part of who we are. So instead of, I never ask myself, what do I have to do? What's needed of me? Because then I'm really not honoring myself. I say, what do I want to honor about myself? Right? I'm very much the type of person that is always looking for self-reflection and looking at, how I interact with other people as my mirror. So, I have, now I don't have as many as I did when I started with 11 brothers and sisters. I had 8 sisters. Now I have 5, but you might even relate that you may have, one sibling that you have a little bit more rivalry to, and for whatever reason that is. I know it's a lifelong childhood thing. And so, just even the simple things like, why do I keep getting this same response from this old pattern when it actually, it backfires on me? Is that really who I want to be? So even a simple thing of, can I be more kind to this person? And, because ego will say, well, why do I have to be kind? Why they should be kind to me? I mean, they're the one who did it. But again, bending the knee doesn't mean, that it's okay having a healthy boundary, but not engaging where you're creating more distress in the mind. So it can be as simple as, my intention is to be kinder to someone that I have not been kinder. My intention is to wake up every morning really thinking about gratitude rather than, what do I have to do today? So what I like to do is I like to make a list of what are, the top 5 values I have. I mean, my family is number 1, my health is number 2. Well, I should say spiritually should kind of go in there too. My spirituality, my family, my health, my creativity, my learning and growing. So those are 5 things that I really like to do. So I kind of say, okay, what am I engaging to, move the needle in this direction or this direction? Now, I've been doing this I'm 68, so I've been doing this for, quite a number of years now. So it's become a habit. It's not something that I go, okay, if I look at all of this, the 5 things, when it comes to who I am as a human being, I say, okay, if I am a biological, psychological, social, and spiritual human being, how am I balancing this out? So I really try to encompass all of it, in the core values that I have as I continue to unfold and evolve forward in this human life. So again, we'll start off with your 5 core values that you have and, 5 things that you enjoy doing. Because I guarantee if you don't enjoy these things, you're not going to do them. I enjoy exercise. I enjoy cooking. If I have a day off, because I like to be busy, I'm like, ooh, what can I cook today? Ooh, I saw this thing on Instagram. Ooh, this looks good. I'm going to try that. And I just don't say it. I do it. Okay. And I get to enjoy the rewards of that. And so, really think about, this can be my template, my 5 core values and, what brings me joy and, and can I push myself a little bit out of my comfort zone because we don't grow when we're in complacency, when we're just kind of a little bit, good stress, eustress, is fine because it motivates us, but not to the point where we are being so depleted that we start to lower our batteries and our energy and end up in a compromised situation. Okay, so again, we want to set challenges, that you look forward to. So growth, doesn't have to be hard. When people say, oh my God, it's so hard. And I go, it's only hard because you keep saying that it's hard. Now, how about if you say, in the past, I would look at these things as challenging and hard, but how about if I look at them now, is I want to take the idea of the curiosity of this and my ability to, look at it from a point of view of, I don't need to achieve, I need to experience. So again, choose challenges that feel interesting, that are nourishing and playful, because honestly, none of us get enough playtime. And so again, children especially, oh my God, they're so dopamine oriented with all of their, computers and tablets and stuff like that, that normal play is not exciting anymore for people, right? They, you see these little kids on these computers and they're doing this and smiling, but there's no interaction. So for me, nature is the greatest stabilizer and balancer. So again, that could be one thing, so you think, oh my God, the last time I walked on the beach or the last time I had a walk, what have you, and you may have limitations, you may have hip problems, you may have this, but you can say, well, it doesn't really cost me too much energy to even go and sit on the beach and ground with my feet and or lay out onto the grass and things like that, where I can bring myself back to nature. So enjoyment increases your dopamine, which supports your ability to have the enthusiasm to keep going, and that's how we create long-term success. So the power of learning. So again, as you well know, your brain is like any muscle. They used to think that you only had so many brain cells and that, at a certain age, you wouldn't be able to create more. But now neuroscience says, no, you absolutely can create more brain cells and more neural networking, which means the behavioral patterns, until I die. Okay. But like anything, if we get into the mindset, I could easily say, I'm 68 years old, I'm not going to learn that technology, this AI. I keep seeing this thing that says, if you're over 40 and you want to learn AI, and you're just using it to do that. And that catches my interest every time. I'm like, I want to use, AI for, writing things that I put together, not it telling me what I want, because I want to use my creativity. I don't want it to just tell me, make a dissertation of this. I'll write it all out. And then, it may embellish it a little bit or put it in organized. And then I'm like, I love it. It's exactly what I said, but just a little bit more refined. So again, I don't want to limit myself with I'm not capable, because it's really easy to fall into that, or I don't have the strength for that. I've got a brand new grandbaby at 7 months. Wow. Okay. Sitting on the floor with your grandbaby playing, a 22-pound baby, holding it in your hand and standing up. Okay. And it's like, okay, so I put my hand on this table, so I put it on my thigh, and I get up and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, when I listen to Peter Attia, he says, yeah, I want to be able to create, the type of a lifestyle and how I live so that when I'm 80 years old, I can pick my grandbaby from the ground and up in the air. And I'm like, now I get it, because I'm like, oh, my back, this and that. So I'm going to get a nice little sling where you can put them in there. They say, for the grandma, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, absolutely, I'm going to do it. And so I want to be strong so that I can do these things and enjoy and, and connect to the best of my ability. So I'm not going to allow for, the old age kind of thing to set in, and because we can definitely reverse any of that goes on with it. So again, growth becomes exciting rather than intimidating. So again, I don't want to be intimidated by something because I've set parameters for myself. No, I want to be like a child. I want to not have the expectations. A child doesn't wake up with the expectation when they play that they're going to achieve something, right? They're playing to have a good time. That's not like about, okay, this is a quantify, we can measure it and so forth. I mean, at least, in their very informal years. I mean, when they get to school now, there's a little bit more rigid mindset. But again, just remember curiosity, it fuels momentum. My thing is imagination. If you look in the Bible, it says imagine it is so. If you look in the old, texts, the ancient texts, it's, if you want to manifest, you imagine it as if it has already happened. What would it feel like? I want to imagine myself with let's just say an acre property with a 1-level home, and, my grandchildren coming over, and me having these, boxes of, that you can do vegetables. I don't want to be on the ground. I know at, 70 years old, I'm not going to want to be on the ground. I want these nice big, wooden boxes that I'm sitting there doing this, and my grandkids, in the dirt. So I'm imagining myself every day at some point, in my hands in the dirt and showing the kids how to plant and getting eggs out of the chicken coop. So I'm putting that in the filter, and so that, our DNA, which has all these antennas to the field, is going to pick it up. But I'm not worried about how I'm going to attain it or who's going to give it to me or how I'm going to achieve it. I'm just going to keep imagining it to be so. And when I say to myself, do I have an experience of this? I say, yeah, my childhood. And when I lived in Spain, I had a 7-acre beautiful property, and it was really fun. So I've had it before. So if you've never had that experience, of gardening or doing this, go and go to a friend's house who's got a garden, so you can put your hands in the dirt, so you can have, at least your imagination knows what it feels like, okay? So curiosity is really important. So again, happiness deepens when we connect to something larger than ourselves. And so for me, it's nature, it's spirituality, it's, being of service to others, it's contributing, and it's feeling connected. And so again, all of that creates an equilibrium around. And like I said, there's a lot of chaos in the world, but the one chaos that you can control is in your mind, because it will affect your body. Your body responds to the narrative in your mind. I have to have thought before I feel. So again, if you're feeling not so terrific and not motivated and depressed and stressed out, you might ask yourself, what stories am I entertaining that are literally making me sick? So small acts create powerful emotional returns. I love gratitude, because gratitude is already sending, the little antennas out there that are picking up the frequencies it's an honor. It's an honor to be on this planet. It's an honor to have this physical body that is still capable of whatever it is capable of doing, because without a body, I cannot experience life. So again, so many of us take that for granted, right? We don't have reverence for the body until oftentimes we are forced into having reverence for our body because we're ill. And all of a sudden we're like, wow, how did I let myself get this far? Well, because I wasn't following what would call my natural homeostasis, which is just to stay in alignment with really having reverence for this physical body, because it is the only vehicle we get in this lifetime. And so we have to make sure we give it the right fuel, which is spiritual food of gratitude. So again, I'm really, anytime like I get in a hot bath, I go, I say, thank you, Jesus. I eat a meal, I'm in gratitude of who grew this food and who cooked it, which is usually me, right? And I'm like, yeah, this is great. And then, everything, can I say thank you at every little turn that I have? And imagine that, you're hearing this, that, everything that has been given to you, there's a thank you, a thank you, a thank you, but not because you're doing it because you're trying to get, validation back. You're doing it because you're truly, truly grateful. And so that is really important. So again, write down the things that you're grateful for in your journey. Just keep it super simple. I'm grateful that I've got this beautiful grandchild. It's like such a gift to me. I'm grateful that we're all healthy. I'm grateful that we have such a tight, connected family and beautiful friends and great food to eat and still enough freedom in my mind that I don't feel like I'm being controlled from the chaos on the outside world. So again, what I like to do is what's called an hour of power, and that's my morning. So, I try to go to bed pretty early now. So I start like at 9 o'clock and do my hot bath, my foam roller, kind of set the stage for a good night's sleep, read a little spiritual book so I don't get overstimulated with science. And then, once I, go to sleep at a decent time, I usually wake up pretty early, like about 5:30 in the morning. It's perfectly dark and freezing out there. I don't want to get up. So I don't. I say, well, in all reality, I don't have to go to the gym till 6:30. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to relish. I'm going to just, this feels so good. It's so nice to have this comforter in this bed. But then I say, well, I got a whole 45 minutes before I wake up. what is your intention? Well, my intention is to do meditation. So I do my meditation. I put my hand in this thing called the Avicen machine that increases microcirculation of my body because I want to keep, more circulation to my face to stay youthful and so forth. So these are the intentions that I have. So instead of doing it once a day, now I'm doing it morning and night. So again, I have it right there next to my bed. Now, sometimes I feel like I don't even feel like bending down and getting it. And sometimes I give myself the flexibility not to do it, but I would say 9 times out of 10, I do it because it's my intent. So again, this is a time where it's about me. How do I want to roll out the red carpet in regards of, thank you, God, for allowing me to wake up another day on this beautiful planet, to receive love, to give love, to be of service in any way that you see fit. So I'm already, in that mindset of service, and then with my meditation, and then I go straight to work out, 45 minutes, boom, in there and out. And again, prayer work, a lot of people will do devotional in the morning. So this is all super beautiful. So kind of ask yourself, if spirituality is part of who I am as a whole person, how am I feeding that? So that I'm looking at biological, psychological, social, and also spiritual. So again, I look for quiet, uninterrupted time to be able to do this, so the chaos of the world or the household doesn't interrupt my capacity to be still. So again, why we struggle with change. We often try to change everything at once. So I told my patient today, I tried to get her to imagine. She has cancer and she's waiting for a bone marrow transplant. She's, in fear of what if I don't, blah, 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 blah. And she has a beautiful grandchild that, now lives, in another state, and she misses her so much. And I said, well, what is your imagination on in the next 5 years? What do you see yourself doing? And she only came up with one thing. She said, I see myself with my granddaughter. And I said, well, where do you see yourself at? I see myself at the beach with her. And I said, well, what are you doing? Are you playing? Are you in a bathing suit? Are you in shorts? Right? Are you building sandcastles? But it was really, really hard for her to actually allow herself to imagine. And I thought, okay, well, she hasn't exercised this muscle in a long time, so it's not her fault. We want to come from a compassionate point of view. But again, if we say, okay, what are my 5 core values? What am I interested in? For her, it's very much connection with her granddaughter that she misses so much. But I said, okay, let's be kind of, abstract, but kind of put it out there. Does she live in another state, or does she live close to me, or did I move close to her? What do I want to see in the next 5 years, which means that I'm still alive in 5 years, and I've gotten that bone marrow transplant, and I've done this thing. So again, it's like, I'm not just about visualization, I'm about feeling it. What will it feel like when I'm doing this? So again, I told her just think about it. So I asked her, are you okay? Let's talk about it a little further. Okay, besides being with the grandbaby, what else, do you want to change, shift and change this year in your attention? I said, so if you're waiting for a bone marrow transplant, how have you prepared your vehicle, which is a guest that is coming to be received? And I said, so diet, exercise, sleep, and all the things that I mentioned are things that she really has not engaged in, okay? So I said, okay, well, let's look at one thing. Let's look at what you're eating. So we talked a little bit about her diet. I said, okay, let's, the next time we meet, we're gonna do a nutritional consultation so you have a very clear intention of what it means to prepare your body for a very important guest to receive it so that it feels welcome. So again, it's just one thing we're going to do, not the 5 things that she needs to do potentially. So again, small wins bring big changes, because when you achieve something that you feel very proud of, it's not a pride, it's proud of. I'm so proud, yeah, why not? Not like, I'm prideful, right? Because a lot of people will relate pride, from a religious point of view. It's not good to be prideful. This isn't about pride. This is about being proud of. And I'm always the first one to say, oh my God, I'm so proud of myself. I did this, I cleaned out the garage, blah, 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 blah. But simple little things that, give me a dopamine. So again, for her, we're gonna, get the bad oils out, eliminate gluten, because she's still eating all of these foods, and yet she's coming to the clinic, and she's getting, spending a lot of money and a lot of time here. So let's be in alignment with our desired outcome, and that is is to have victory over her condition. So again, once that feels like you feel a little grounded and stable, then again, the next step but again, we start to look at, how am I experiencing my changes, right? And a lot of times, we get on the scale and we really can't see much because we don't know the distributing of your muscle and your fat and your bones. So we can be very deceived. And so we're going to talk a little bit about one of the ways to be able to easily measure that. So if, health and fitness is, kind of one of your goals, this is just a great way, again, to have another template. So just talks a little bit about, external motivation and internal motivation. So again, we don't want to have this all about rewards, because then it's all about performance. Then it's all about evaluation. Then it's all about judgment. If I don't, reach my deadline, I judge myself. It's all about the short term get there rather than, the long term of a lifestyle. And again, it often can backfire on us. But internal, it's going to come from within. You're going to identify it. It's going to bring you joy. It's sustainable. And I do it because, that's just who I am. I'm a gluten-free, I love a low carbohydrate, things of that nature. I do it because that's just who I am, to maintain the metabolism and the vitality that I want to have. Nobody's forcing me to do this. Okay, so procrastination is often rooted in stress, oh, it's going to be so hard. Oh, right. And again, that just puts us in fear and anxiety. And so I say, embrace change, because change is inevitable, even the change that's difficult. But if I lean into it, I realize, wow, that wasn't so hard. That wasn't so difficult after all. But procrastination can just, again, fuel our anxiousness and then the ability to, you see, I couldn't do it. You see, it didn't work. So helpful tools, again, let's break them into manageable things that we can do. If we want to just say, okay, this week, I'm going to drink 2 of these this week. Next week, I'm going to drink 3. So again, they're things that I can measure and I can celebrate over them, but I'm not pressured into doing it. It's what we really want to focus on. So again, thoughts shape your emotions. So as I said before, your chemistry is based upon your emotions. So I say, think of your emotions as the language of your body, okay? And if your child was speaking to you, or if your body was having a difficult time in terms of its health, wouldn't you want to listen to what it had to say? So I say, think of your emotions like a child that's dysregulated. You wouldn't walk by your child if it was having a difficult time. You'd stop and you would have compassionate curiosity. What's going on, honey? What can I help you with? And that is a need to support the child from a state they're in out. But if I come from a point of evaluating, which comes with judgment, which comes from criticism. So I'm all about observing, being curious, what is needed, and how can I meet those needs. So I imagine that I am that child, and I am a responsible mother to the child. So when I take the child to the doctor's thrilled and says, oh my goodness, you've got this child that's thriving and in the 85, 95 percentile. Not like, ma'am, do you realize that you have a child that has failure to thrive, right? Because I have not been paying attention. So again, I love to do imagination, and I love affirmations. So if I know, which I do know, that I have, some old patterns that have created limiting beliefs throughout my life based upon my childhood, I've memorized things that, would be an automatic pull the weed, plant the flower, pull the weed, plant the flower. So for you, you might say, do I have some core beliefs that limit me in some way, shape, or form? And what would I rather say to myself to motivate and encourage me rather than the narrative in my mind? So again, I like to, rewrite. And so if I say something that, is a negative affirmation, then I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to very quickly and say, no, this is what I do want, not what I don't want. And again, affirmations just help for you to stay connected to your intention, and then they really help you to see where your emotional resilience is at, because you're able to go from maybe feeling sad to finding some joy, maybe from feeling anxious to finding a little peace. How quickly can I get back home, which is my natural state? Your natural state is not anxious, it's not worried, it's not jealousy, it's not envy. That is not your natural state. That is a human construct. So there is no lack and limitation in quantum physics or in spirituality. So negative self-talk can become an emotional, abusive inner voice. People can get addicted to drama, and especially if they've had a lot of trauma in their childhood and a lot of chaos, they will seem to generate more because somehow it feels that they need that to feel normal. And this is where the e-box is very helpful at identifying and then also working on clearing the stagnation. And so again, this negative mindset, it really can disconnect us from our intuition. And some of you have felt real depression. I have not been in the depths of such deep depression that my mind overtook and it went down such a rabbit hole that I could not get back. But I've had circumstances and with people that I love, that I would never expect, that under condition of illness, under the condition of lack of nutrition, lack of absorption, that they went into such a deep depression that they could not get out of the negative loop that they were creating that later caused their demise. So, negative thoughts literally can kill you. So again, positive affirmations gently redirect the mind, towards safety and growth. So again, don't try to do it all on your own. If you feel that your mind is taking over and you can't get out, seek out help, whether it is a mentor or a family member or your husband, somebody that you feel safe with, a counselor, and or doing some e-box and emotional work. So again, these affirmations should always be uplifting. So you should never say, an affirmation has a negative connotation, like, I will choose not to be angry anymore, okay? Because there's a negative connotation. I would say, I set healthy boundaries because I love myself and it creates harmony in my life, something of that nature. So I don't use a negative implication when I'm doing an affirmation in regards to what I don't want to do, is what do I want? And again, it should bring you a level of peace of mind. It should be compassionate. It should come from a level of I am capable and confident, from a calm state of being, and then that mindset of gratitude, because we all know when we're dysregulated and not calm. And so again, you just put your hand on your heart and, you just drop down into your heart and just say, what is it that you need? Like if you're a loving, compassionate mother to a child. So again, affirmations, they're going to help. And I love breath work because that's the one thing that will regulate you very quickly. So always we can drop down into our body by just connecting to our breath. So, I do a 5 breath in, a 4 breath hold, and a 7 breath out as I bring the air into my belly, draw it up into my chest. And then when I exhale, I imagine there's a frequency of like a gold bullion color moving out of me. So I breathe in my belly, I bring it up into my chest, and then I allow this radiating energy out because we do have an auric field that can get infiltrated and damaged and also fractured. So I try to work with that, the unseen. Okay, so I begin, just with a few deep breaths, just like a few minutes a day. Again, when I do my meditations, which are 20 minutes, a lot of times they're guided. I'll do the breathing through the whole thing. Or when I'm doing the neurovisor, where I've got this thing that's got these flashing lights and music and brain stuff, then I'll do my breathing with that because it really helps to regulate my nervous system and support my heart rate variability. So when the body feels safe, you can absorb affirmations. So again, if I'm, trying to just say them, but I don't feel them or I'm not in a state to receive them, you're better just to go take a nap, go lay down, go ground, just give yourself a moment to just try to, detach from everything and just, what you may need is just absolutely nothing in that moment. So again, sometimes quiet is really important. So again, your New Year's, intentions and not resolutions should be in alignment. They should not give you any pressure. They should not be based upon, an outcome that is judged, or, just again, we want to have the mindset of it will ever be perfect. So I don't need to be perfect, but I need to be flexible. And we want to choose a life that feels good to us and that is sustainable for the rest of your life. I mean, I'm planning on being flexible and exercising. When I was younger, I used to do high impact aerobics, jump, and, from some of the injuries I have, I can't do that, but I didn't stop. I just said, okay, well, if I can't do that, what can I do? So I can't keep shifting in regards of what I'm capable of doing, but I don't stop what I'm doing just because I've had an injury, my Achilles tendon, an ACL rupture. I just said, oop, I can't be doing high impact anymore. So what can I do? And I shift. Right now, weight training is very important for me because at my age, you don't have the testosterone. And so you need to, build the muscle mass to maintain your metabolism, the integrity of your body. So this is why, for me, I love this particular measuring device, and it's a new one that we got. It's called the InBody 770. And I love it because it really gives patients a really great, 3D. Okay, I just got on the scale and now it's spitting out the information, kind of like let's just say microscopy. You're looking at your blood and it's real on time. And so it isn't just like a body fat reader or a composition analyzer. It really breaks it down. Like, for example, it's going to tell you how much water you have at the inside of the cell that allows it for flexibility to allow nutrition to move in and toxins out, right? We need to have a good amount of water, but in order to have a good amount of water in the cell, you're going to have a good amount of minerals to hold on to the water, okay? Now, if I see a patient that looks like they have extracellular water, more water on the outside that would be considered healthy, because you should always have, let's just say, 76% in the inside of the cell and then the rest on the outside of the cell. Now, but if I see that a little bit backward or almost like equal outside than inside, then I know that there's inflammation going on or the body's trying to create water because maybe there's an injury there. So I will ask a patient, do you have an injury? Or maybe they have edema where their lymphatic system is not working well. Or maybe, we need to do further testing because it could be a disease state. So these are just not about body composition. It's just about looking at the efficiency of the body and the energy. The other thing that I like to look at, it gives you the ratios between my right and left arm. Are we balanced in terms of lean muscle tissue? And I can tell a patient that has had an injury because maybe this one will be at 70% and this will be at 62%. So we see there's an imbalance there. So again, we would maybe just do a little bit more therapy work on this side. Maybe they're favoring it because it was injured. So we want to have good balance so that our body doesn't get out of alignment, and then we end up compensating. So it breaks that down in regards of body parts. Right to left leg, right to left upper body, trunk. So it gives us a good value, which is really interesting. And then it breaks down your body fat, mass, which is, everything that's not fat, but also muscle and bone. And it gives you a value. And then it breaks down your percentage of body fat in regards of, are you in an inflammatory state or you're not in an inflammatory state? How many calories are you burning at rest? What should you be burning? But the thing that interests me the most on this test is what's called phase angle. And phase angle is the electrical current inside the mitochondria and the organelles. So just think that you have battery packs that stack up one on top of the other. Now, if you left your car battery on all night, the likelihood of you waking up and starting your car is probably not going to be good. And you're going to need the AAA to come jump you, right? So kind of that's what we do here too. So in the phase angle, it tells us the current of the battery in your cell. So when you think of, this, let's say your muscle and the little organelles that have little engines in there that make ATP, which is energy. If this battery gets drained, okay, and then this battery has to compensate, what happens if we don't recharge these batteries by taking the stress off, taking the toxins off, repairing what we need to repair, then you get what happens is you get a reverse polarity, and this is where disease sets in. So what we're looking at is we're gauging what we call the phase angle. So, we're looking at a healthy phase angle for a woman, let's just say, should be 5 and above according to this particular machine here and its evaluation. And for a man, it should be 6 and above. But according to Dr. Tennant, who really invented this kind of, testing for the energy inside the cell, he said 7 and above, you don't get cancer, okay? I had a patient the other day with a 3. And yes, she did have cancer. And I've had patients, that are on a 6.5. So it's not far, but it's still not in ideal range. And that's why here we have, kind of like a AAA would jump your battery. But we only are able to do that until we, basically charge the battery until we figure out what is draining your battery. Is it virus or bacteria? Is it heavy metals? What is going on in the body that keeps draining your battery? So we do have different, machines that can, give you frequency. The biomodulator is one of them, and then the other one is the MEAD is test as well. And so again, this is kind of like the MEAD. It's going to tell you what value you have, and then we're going to use the biomodulator or the other one that's I can't remember the other one. Just my mind went off, but I'll think of it in a moment. Let's see, the biomodulator and then the something else. But anyway, it's a Tesla coil, and it's really cool. You sit in there and it sends all these frequencies out. So it's like charging the whole body. And then the other one, you're putting your feet on a plate, and it's kind of like a battery. So we can see, like, okay, let's just say if we see the battery really low, we may have you do that 5 days a week if it's a 3, right? But if it's like a 6.5 and it's not as low, but it's not ideal, we may have you do it 3 days a week. And then we'll test you again in a couple of weeks, like let's just say 6 weeks, 7 weeks, to see if we see the battery going up. But meanwhile, we're not just trying to band-aid you, we're trying to figure out what is actually depleting your battery. And then, at the clinic here, we're gonna run a battery of tests, whether parasites, virus, bacteria, heavy metals, things of that nature, to see what is going on. So I love this test. So again, it's not just about, your body fat or, how you look and things like that. It's how you are functioning. And then of course, once it comes to me with this information, then I'll tell you, this is the type of exercise you need. If you have, you're in cachexia where you've lost a bunch of muscle, you've lost a bunch of weight, I'm not going to give you cardiovascular aerobic exercise because that'll just break it down. We're going to slowly add, get your gut good, start to add, gentle weights training and so forth. So depending on whatever evaluation you have, I'm going to give you a program that's going to have to do with exercise, the way you eat, and also, in regards to lifestyle. So it's really great. I love it. Okay, so remember, it's not necessarily about the fat loss. It's about the inflammation that we're looking for, and to get your phase angle so that you don't have a reverse polarity. So if you got a battery with positive and negative, negative is healthy, positive is unhealthy. So in order for you to be healthy, you have to have a negative 25. So when you're at a 6, you're at a 20. So we need to increase the frequency to 50 to try to get you to a 25. So 25 is the minimal for being healthy. So we do have measures to see what the electrical current is that you are currently experiencing, which is, I think, pretty fascinating. Okay, so I just talked a little bit about that already. So again, over time, we're able to measure this, which is really nice. I like to kind of know, am I in alignment? Am I achieving, my desired outcome? And through this, it makes it quite easy. So I'm going to open up for Q&A. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And if you have any questions and you would like to ask me, I'm going to say that you could go ahead and just, in the participants, there's a thing where you can raise your hand and then you can ask me a question if you like. But if I've covered everything, but one of the things I always say is, what about what I said stood out for you? What about what we talked about today is a usable tool for you to start looking at, what is my template? How do I want to roll out 2026? Because in the beginning, we're very motivated. I'm sure every one of you, is kind of like, okay, well, I kind of blew it a little bit during the holiday season. I'm back on my regular eating regime, blah, blah, blah. But not as a taskmaster and punishment, but as getting back on my game is kind of how I look at it. I mean, believe me, I'm there too. We have a question?
I'll type. They said, how can we find practitioners in other parts of the country? Where are we located?
Okay, that's a good question. And so we do have a network of, other practitioners that, we integrate with. So probably an email to us in regards to where you live, maybe what condition you might have, because obviously they're specialists for different things. So
ACAM too.
What's that?
ACAM has practitioners.
Oh, and then also ACAM, if you check that out, we'll have, practitioners of all the lists of, like even EVOX. If you looked under EVOX for emotional work and you called them, they will tell you all the EVOX practitioners all over the world too as well. All right, well, we finished 55 minutes. That's pretty remarkable for me because I can talk for a lot. And so I hope you guys, learned a little bit about yourself tonight, and to be compassionate and to hold your imagination in the palms of your hands in regards to what would it feel like for me to already be experiencing this, so that it begins to resonate out without the attachment of time, but knowing that it will happen because I'm in alignment with my desired outcome. So with that, I'm going to say farewell till our next episode, and everyone have a wonderful start to your new year. Okay, good night.